croeso i neuadd y ddinas Gaerdydd I dathlu TAI 2012 a croeso i'r gynhadledd.
Welcome to TAI 2012 and to City Hall here in Cardiff. I hope you have a very exciting conference.
Well, once again, good morning everyone and welcome to TAI 2012, to what we hope will be 3 days of excellent debate, as well as a chance to meet up with friends and colleagues old and new.
I'm very grateful to be invited to say a few words to kick off what is a really important conference at an important time. I'm not sure that there's ever been a more important time to be discussing how we maximise the benefits we derive from investment in housing. Hugh Lewis is very keen on the idea of system stewardship, which means that we're equally, if not more, interested in the contribution and the investment being made by house builders and our other partners. The system for which we are aiming to deliver stewardship is not without its challenges at the moment. The report commissioned by ministers into the impact in Wales of the UK government's welfare reforms makes for chilling reading. It highlights the scale of what one of our ministers referred to this week as the moral challenge of responding to those reforms as effectively as possible. He wasn't making a campaigning point. He was underlining that we need to ask hard questions about how we best deliver housing and other services to the neediest in society. So it's encouraging that we're beginning to see imaginative responses to the position in which we find ourselves, new partnerships, streamlined systems. We need more of both of those. But are we ready to cope with 4 or 5 more years of budget cuts? If not, we are failing to rise to that moral challenge.
Fantastic that Wales is launching its own Rising Stars competition. I think it's really important for us as a sector to identify and support talent and future leaders, arguably more so when times are hard.
Give you Mark Fury.
Thank you very much. And I'm pleased to be sharing what could be the longest 5 minutes of my life with you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Sadler.
Because I really truly believe housing is a great career to choose.
I give you Claire Way.
And I want to be able to use this position as an opportunity to influence the future direction of housing policy and practice in Wales.
It's certainly our role to be there alongside government and partners to make sure that we're doing our bit, if you like. But it's also our role to challenge ourselves, to challenge the sector, to challenge government and others to do better. The Minister has made it plain that he wants to see new forms of ownership of cooperative housing developed over the next period, and we're 4 square behind him on that. But we want to broaden the argument into control and accountability of social housing in a much more general sense. This is about rolling our sleeves up. It's about making sure that we're not caught in the headlamps of recession and welfare reform. We can do something. And you heard from our Rising Star finalists, they are doing on a day-to-day basis. You are all doing things that are making things less severe, less harmful for the people and communities that you work in. That we actually recognise that we've got a duty to be better, to make sure that we're more efficient, to make sure that we deal with the growing range of problems that we face with as best we can. It means being smarter about how we provide advice and information, and we join things up better. And as I say, we need to take risks more. We can stand back and be spectators, or we can do things. We've talked enough about housing-led regeneration. It's time we put the tanks of housing on the lawns of health and education to make sure that they understand, and economic development too, that we're not asking for a begging bowl, we're not asking for a payoff. We're saying, if you embrace us, we can actually deliver so much more for your agendas as well. So it's particularly inspiring that we see young people coming through the system. And you know what? They're better at sharing than us. They don't think good practice is a state secret, and they don't want to charge colleagues for it. They actually talk to each other. So I think it's really encouraging that we're seeing a whole range of people coming forward that are going to take up the reins. Gerald, can you give us your take on what you think the current prospects are for the Welsh economy?
Well, the Welsh economy, I think, faces a sort of dual prospect, really. One area of it is going to be under severe pressure, and that's the public sector. We know that the government is determined to try and get the overall UK deficit down, so it's cutting. Wales has got a larger public sector relative to the rest of the economy, than other places in the UK, so it's going to suffer disproportionately from that. Capital spending is going to fall by more than half in real terms over the next 4 years, which is a huge drop. And even ordinary revenue expenditure is going to fall by about 10% in real terms. So that side of the economy is definitely under the cosh. It's in for hard times. Now, on the other hand, the pound has gone down quite a lot recently, so that those companies which are selling abroad, particularly if they're selling to North America or to Asia rather than to Europe, probably have rather better prospects because they've become more competitive with the lower pound. So I do see it's not all doom and gloom. It's pretty gloomy on the public sector side, but hopefully we can see some improvement in some areas of our manufacturing.
Because a lot of people say that a lot of this is out of our control, it's driven by the Treasury and sort of economic conditions. And there's a sort of counter-argument that you should have more powers to actually intervene in the economy. But people are also saying, you pick up in the pub really, people say things like, well actually we've only just got legislative powers, isn't it a bit early to be talking about extending powers into other areas?
Well, I think there is an issue as to how much experience there is in the Welsh Assembly and in the government, but the point is you never get any better unless you practice. So I think to some extent whatever you're looking at in life, it's only actually doing it that enables you to do it and to get better at it. So I think in the longer run, most people now do understand that the Welsh Government will only act in a competent and responsible way if it has some responsibility for raising its own revenue. And there may be a learning period, but we have to go through that at some point. So why not now?
There's a lot of talk as well, particularly driven by the situation in Scotland about Devo Max, and to what extent do you think we are following the sort of lead in Scotland, and what impact do you think the events in Scotland are having on Wales at the moment?
The brutal truth is we can't follow the lead of Scotland because their economy is not in balance, but their budget deficit is much smaller than the Welsh. Our budget deficit is twice the size of ours, even before you take oil into account. We're now in a situation where the excess of public spending in Wales and for Wales over the taxes raised in Wales is something like £12 billion a year, at least. It's getting on for 30% of our Welsh GDP. So our taxes wouldn't sustain our expenditure. In Scotland, if they cut a good deal, they can get close to that. We can't. So we have to find a different way. We might want to aim for that in the longer run, but right now we just can't do it.
We're running a competition here this week called Rising Stars Cymru, which is about spotting talent amongst the young housing professionals. What would you say to them in terms of, some hope of optimistic sort of outlooks going forward as well regarding the sort of Welsh economy?
Well, I do think that necessity is the mother of invention. Since we've had devolution, public expenditure rose in England and in the UK as a whole, and we got a good grant that was growing fast. Arguably it should have been a bit bigger, but it wasn't bad and it was growing. Now that's not the case. Now the grant is frozen or shrinking. We just have to think harder about how to do things, and I think we can. I think the Welsh people are sufficiently ingenious that they can find a way through this, and now we really have to. So that's if you like, the bad news is the good news.
Thank you very much.